Hello, this is number 6 coming to you from the village. I want to talk today about MGTOW and an aspect of female and male psychology which I haven't heard talked about much on other channels. So this is the development of gender identity in children. Very hot topic and a popular one, obviously, with feminists, with the trans community. And I think there's a very important aspect of this that is overlooked. So this is about the way that our awareness of our gender develops from our experience with our parents. And children below the age of 3 don't seem to have any real awareness of their own gender. There may be some gender differences which show up at a very early age. Some people suggest from the moment of birth. For example, the experiment where male babies and female babies focus on different kind of pictures. Males pretending to focus on pictures of machinery, engineering, and girls on people. But this doesn't seem to denote an actual awareness of the child's own gender. That starts to develop at around 3 years old, and it develops between the ages of 3 and 5. And it's interesting that most people have no memory of a time before the age of 3. So that era in our lives, from the time of birth, or we could stretch it back to before birth, to the age of 3, is that very special time in life before identity has started to form, where the child has not yet learned to differentiate their identity from their mother, from the place they came from. So, of course, each of us comes into the world from our mother's body. We begin our lives connected to our mother, and in our early years, we have a kind of a symbiotic relationship. And it seems that babies in these early years don't differentiate themselves from their mother particularly. They have this very close relationship with the mother, and the world as such is something which certainly in early years or early months they're hardly aware of at all. And you can see this with babies if you have a chance to observe them. So it takes some time for this awareness of the individual identity distinct from the world around them to develop. And for some time after that, they still haven't developed a real sense of themselves as a distinct entity from the mother. And this is that blissful state which we might picture as a kind of a Garden of Eden. So it's in these early years where it's difficult to really see major differences between little boys and little girls. So then how does this gender identity develop? Well, at this age of 3 and upwards, the child starts to become aware of their own identity as distinct from their mother. And as that happens, they also become aware of their own gender. And as they become aware of their own gender, they become aware that they're like their mother or they're not. They're something different to their mother in the case of boys. So this is the really important crossroads, if you like, in the child's life, where boys become boys, girls become girls. So let's talk about boys first. What does it mean to a boy when he starts to understand that he is something different? His identity is something different to the identity of his mother. Well, again, this is something which probably most of us can't actually remember going through, but it is something which all of us have been through. This experience, I think, could be described as a kind of a trauma, a kind of a low-level traumatic experience, not physically, but psychologically. This separation from the mother, you could describe as a kind of being cast out of that Garden of Eden, which I mentioned earlier on. And this is going to lead to some very far-reaching ramifications in the psychology of the child. So, first of all, there must be a questioning. If I'm not like the mother, if I'm not like her, what am I like? Who am I? And that process begins of trying to find an answer to that question, that most basic question, the question of philosophers. And it's at this point where the presence of the male parent, the father, is so crucial, and where so many children today, so many boys in particular today, growing up in single parent families, which usually means single mother families, are in such an unfortunate position because they don't have that example to look to, that role model of who they are as distinct from the mother. All there is a mother there, and for them, they know that that can't be them. For them, that's not an acceptable route to take. And when they look around, there's no alternative on offer for them there, which throws them at that very young age into a very unenviable state of confusion. But whether the father is present or not, this question still remains the question of identity. So what are some of the things that come out of this quest for the boy? Well, invention. This is a question which is going to tax his creativity. The need to be somebody, be an autonomous individual, which can lead, as the child grows, to that desire to make a mark on the world, to achieve things. And as far as that boy is successful in finding a sense of his own identity, that in turn will lead to more characteristics. For example, a sense of responsibility. Once we understand that we are an individual, autonomous person with agency, that has to lead us to a consideration of the consequences of our actions and the concept of being responsible for those actions. There's also an understanding of, and perhaps a seeking out of, a sense of power over the world, over our surroundings, our ability to control our surroundings. And all of these, I think, will begin to manifest in these young children from the age of 5 and later on in their lives as they become adults. So now, what about the girls? Well, there's an absence of all of the above. The girl doesn't have to go through that psychological trauma of separation, of recognizing herself as being different, with all that entails, and the questioning and the trying to find the place in the world and the finding of identity, because she realizes that she is essentially the same as that other that she came from, the mother. She's like her, a mini-me, if you like, of her mother. And this leads to a much more placid situation. Now, I'm not making any judgments here about whether this is better or worse or anything like that. I'm really just trying to understand the situation. And a quote from Oscar Wilde comes to mind here, where he said that women become like their mothers. And I've heard it said that before you think about getting involved in a LTR with a woman, you should look to see what her mother is like, because that's the way it's going to be later on. So I think this also explains the discomfort and unease that so many women today are feeling as they attempt to make their way in a man's world, in the world of career, in that world which men have been prepared for and men have created, if you like, as a result of those early experiences which girls, women don't have. And it might also explain why the research shows that women are happiest as stay-at-home mothers. And this isn't gender stereotyping or, whatever feminist type label you might want to stick on it. It is just a result of those early formative childhood experiences. And there's a relevant saying that, show me the child of 7 and I'll show you the adult. So I think this goes some way towards explaining essential differences in psychology between men and women, and also showing why, quite apart from biology, there are differences here which are going to be extremely difficult to eliminate, and why I think these social engineering experiments which we're seeing on children are doomed to fail, though they're capable of causing a lot of damage along the way. So those are my thoughts on childhood and development of gender psychology, and I'd like to leave you with some lines of Ezra Pound which seem to be relevant here. Of all these young women, not one has inquired the cause of the world, nor the modus of lunar eclipses, nor whether there be any patch left of us after we cross the infernal ripples, nor if the thunder fall from predestination, nor anything else of importance. This is number 6, coming to you from the village. Please don't forget to like this video if you do like it, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you all again soon.